Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
Eighth inmate dies at Charlotte prison. By Ann Easker. Staff writer. An inmate pronounced deceased at the Charlotte Correctional Institution Thursday is the eighth to die there this year. Jeffrey Miller, 62, was serving a life sentence for a 1989 robbery with a gun or deadly weapon out of Brevard County. He had been housed at Charlotte CI since December 13, 2016. With Miller's death, the facility has exceeded last year's count of 7 inmate deaths. The Florida Department of Corrections said Miller's death is under investigation by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, with assistance from the department's Office of the Inspector General. Due to the active investigation and the federal HIPAA privacy rule, no further information is immediately available, Department of Corrections staff said earlier this week. FDLE currently has 3 active investigations of inmate deaths at CCI: Broderick Campbell, 22, who died October 3, Jamie Godsey, 38, who died October 12, and Miller, who died December 7. The agency recently closed the death investigations of Antonio Kirkland, 44, who died July 10, and Miguel Guevara, 47, who died September 20. However, the investigations were not immediately available Tuesday, due to record request processing times. FDLE. Miller investigates all inmate homicides, suicides, and any other deaths in which the cause is not immediately apparent. The highest number of inmate deaths this year still belongs to Miami-Dade Correctional Institution, with 10. Charlotte now holds the second highest number on its own, exceeding the 2 facilities it was previously tied with. Email, aeasker@sun-herald.com.
Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thanksgiving Day, and Friday.
There ought to be a way to prevent it from happening again.
What should have been one weekend in jail ended with a funeral. Now a grieving family is suing, hoping for answers. The death happened in the Charlotte County Jail's medical ward.
And a 3-month investigation between Wink News and the Charlotte Sun newspaper reveals it's not the first time an inmate being treated by medical staff at the jail has died. Wink News investigative reporter Lauren Sweeney uncovers never-before-seen jail video, photographs, and interviews to help shed some light on what's happening.
The fight was on, and once we got in, he was very strong.
The inmate was crying real hard.
And noticed that he was turning blue.
Sorry to the family. I don't know, I'm sorry.
Definitely should not outlive your kids. And I hope I don't outlive any of my others.
Tom Ireland's son Greg was an engineer in Wisconsin. Years after losing his job and moving in with his parents in Punta Gorda, things really went south for the 47-year-old. On August 22, 2015, Greg was arrested for driving under the influence. Even though he weighed 322 pounds, his blood alcohol level was 0.314, nearly 4 times the legal limit.
I had to bail him out on Monday and he'd be done.
Deputies first brought Ireland to a hospital where he was diagnosed with alcohol abuse and a potassium deficiency.
He left with a prescription, but after he was booked into the medical wing at the Charlotte County Jail, no one gave him that medication or anything used to detox from alcohol.
The physical withdrawal from those chemicals can cause death.
And that's what the medical examiner listed as the official cause of death: natural causes due to withdrawal from alcohol.
I don't think it was at all natural.
I poured through hundreds of audio interviews, photos, videos, and documents examining in-custody deaths at the Charlotte County Jail. There have been 5 in the past 5 years. And Ireland's death was the second in the medical wing due to withdrawal from alcohol. A homeless man arrested for panhandling died in 2013 after being put in a restraint chair for hours.
Person is not in a correct mental and physical state, They may be wanting to comply, but just not able to, and they may not even be able to verbalize it.
Addiction therapist Robert Robb says he's not surprised by what we hear deputies and inmates describe in these recorded interviews.
We gave him several orders. He was non-compliant throughout, and then when he took the step, that's when I felt that it was escalating to the point where I needed to defend myself.
He said, "I can't get on my back." And I heard the taste go off.
The interviews and surveillance video we're showing was all part of an internal investigation into Ireland's death.
Once we went hands-on, made physical contact with him, he became very, very aggressive.
I could hear punches tight, I could hear hits, and I could hear the taser, and then I heard somebody being picked up more than one time and slammed on the concrete.
12 minutes into the ordeal, deputies say he became unresponsive, and they asked a nurse to check him out.
I asked him if he knew his name, and he told me his name was Ireland. And I tried to put the pulse ox on his finger, but he was very aggressive.
At this point, it had been 2 days since Ireland was diagnosed with alcohol abuse. But records show it wasn't until after this encounter with deputies that medical staff ordered a detox drug, which they never ended up administering. While that's going on, the video shows multiple bright flashes as deputies surround Ireland. Records show they used a taser on him a total of 9 times.
Was he still kind of rolling or
like a
squirming?
Inchworm type.
So he's still squirming.
He kept breaking the restraints loose, yeah.
Deputies claim a morbidly obese Ireland continued to fight as they moved him. But the inmate in the cell next to him tells a different story.
And they stopped right in front of my cell and put him down because they're having trouble carrying him. And he wasn't moving, he wasn't making any sound, he wasn't nothing.
Ireland is moved to a cell with a camera for monitoring, but after 8 minutes, they realize the camera isn't working and move him again. And the moment he's moved into a cell with a functioning camera, you see him turned over and a spit mask removed from his face.
I didn't see any chest rise, and his face was blue. His eyes were glazed over a little bit. And at that point, we laid him on his back, and I started chest compressions on him.
Just never woke up. What wasn't followed through on? What went wrong? Because something was wrong.
Tom Ireland has since filed suit against the Charlotte County Sheriff, the deputies involved, the medical contractor for the jail, Corazon Health, and its employees. There's been no response yet to that lawsuit, and no one involved in any of these deaths was charged with a crime or policy violation. But the Sheriff's Office did change how it checks on inmates in restraints after the 2013 death. I reached out to everyone, but no one would comment except the healthcare contractor. They gave us a statement explaining that their staff follows standards that are recognized by the medical profession and the courts as the benchmark for care at prisons and jails.
All right, Lauren, thank you. This was a joint project with the Charlotte Sun newspaper. You can read the story in today's edition of The Sun or on their website.
The newspaper and Wink News finally did the stories on the jail deaths at the Charlotte County Sheriff Bill Prummell Jail. 5 deaths in 5 years. No outside investigation. Failure to treat. Detoxing inmate never received medication. By Ann Easker. Staff writer. Editors note this story was reported after a joint investigation between the Sun newspapers and Wink News. When Rob Tigros came into the medical wing of the jail on August 24, 2015, he said the pod looked like a murder scene. I walked in, I saw oxygen tanks and bloody gloves and defibrillator paddles and more bloody gloves and taser wire all over the place, he said. Inmates were screaming that the cops were murderers, Tigros said, that they killed an inmate who'd been carried out by EMS after a use of force incident. As a trustee in the medical wing of the jail, it was his job to hand out food, but some of the inmates wouldn't eat. They were too afraid to come to the door to take their food, he said. Too sad, too scared to even come to the door to eat. Later in the day, he also cleaned up the mess, he said. I cleaned up all the blood, he said. I can see where they let his head hit the ground as they carried him up the second floor hall down the stairs. I found blood and hair on the stairs. There was a lot of blood all over the place. It wasn't natural causes. The inmate, Greg Ireland, was still alive at that point, but he died 2 days later on August 26. He never. Failure 4. I don't know that there is one person to blame. I don't know where the chain fell apart, but at that medical facility is the place to start. I don't believe they did their job. Tom Ireland, father of Greg Ireland. The Wink News story will air at 6 p.m. today. And can also be viewed online at www.winnews.com. Bottom line. The 2015 death of inmate Greg Ireland has sparked a lawsuit against the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office, its jail, and Corizon Correctional Health Care. The Sun newspapers and Wink News investigated the death. See more on page 5 and Viewpoint page 8. Tom Ireland of Port Charlotte looks over past Sun articles and files of his son, Greg, who died in August 2015 after an altercation with another inmate inside the Charlotte County Jail. Sun file photo. Woke up after the incident when he was shocked by a taser 9 times and restrained by multiple corrections officers. His death is the subject of a federal lawsuit filed in the Middle District of Florida, alleging failure to treat on the part of the jail's medical provider, Corizon, and its employees, Dr. Adamar Gonzalez, Nurse Margaret Bracey, and Nurse Zachary Heavener, deliberate indifference on the part of Sheriff Bill Prummell, excessive force on the part of 8 corrections officers, or wrongful death under state law on the part of both Corizon and Sheriff Prummell. Use of force incident. Jail records show Ireland was arrested for a DUI after getting stopped while swerving on Gasparilla Road around 2:25 a.m. on August 22, 2015. His BAC was .314, more than 3 times Florida's legal limit of .08. He was taken to the hospital prior to being booked into the jail, where he was diagnosed with alcohol abuse and hypokalemia, a potassium deficiency commonly seen with alcohol abuse which, if left untreated, can lead to cardiac abnormalities, according to Dr. Katina Matthews, Chief Medical Officer at Charlotte Behavioral Health Care. According to Ireland's medical records, he was administered potassium chloride and given a prescription to take orally every 12 hours for the next 30 days. A progress report in Corizon's records indicates Dr. Gonzalez was aware of the prescription, but there's no indication the drug was ever authorized or administered at the jail. Additionally, it does not appear Ireland was given any medication for alcohol withdrawal, which can cause agitation, hallucination, seizures, a high temperature and high blood pressure, all symptoms which may not show up until a couple of days after an individual has had their last drink. According to jail staff, there was initially no issue with Ireland. He talked with Corrections Deputy Brandon Schwartzentruber about football on Sunday night. Ireland was a big Wisconsin fan, his father said. He often went to games with his brothers and watched them on television while he lived with his parents in Florida. But around 11 p.m. Sunday, Ireland started shouting to other inmates, and at 3:20 a.m., Schwartzentruber went with Nurse Heavener to see what the commotion was. Ireland's roommate, Taylor Weiser, said Ireland was throwing cups of water on him, and he wanted to be removed from the cell. They had Weiser step out while Schwartzentruber went to move his boat, a plastic shell with a mattress used as a bed. Ireland seemed anxious, jittery, and was sweating profusely. Schwartzentruber said he refused to comply with orders to sit down and instead shoved the boat at him. When Ireland stepped toward him in what he considered an aggressive manner, he deployed his taser. For my safety and inmate Weiser's safety, I didn't want things to escalate, Schwartzentruber told Major Crimes investigators afterward. He then called emergency traffic and initiated another taser cycle, but Ireland reportedly pulled out one of the prongs. As officers arrived from other parts of the jail to assist, Ireland kept resisting, they said, later kicking, swinging, and attempting to bite them. "If you can imagine, like a fish flopping," Deputy Schwacko said, struggling to describe Ireland's actions. "Just rolling around." At one point, an officer yelled that Ireland was unresponsive, but by the time the nurse entered the room, he was alert and began swearing at her. Eventually, the officers put him in leg irons and an emergency restraint belt, with straps around his torso, midsection, and knees. They carried him downstairs after putting a spit mask on him, intending to put him under direct observation in a cell with a camera. 2 officers took his legs, 2 took his torso, and 1 stood behind to watch his head. According to Deputy Michael Burnett, they were careful for his safety. "We always carry inmates' feet first," Burnett said. "We don't use inmates as battering rams. We don't want to lead with their heads." Downstairs, the deputies took Ireland into cell 6, but Lieutenant Deborah Barrett informed them the camera wasn't working, so they moved him again into cell 3. By that time, he was no longer making noise. They took the spit mask off and found he was unresponsive. "His face was red, maybe a little purplish or something," said Deputy Albert Burrows. "Eyes were glassed over, and he appeared not to be breathing." The nurses and deputies started CPR while Charlotte County EMS was called. Once emergency personnel arrived, they took over and transported Ireland to Bayfront Punta Gorda, where he remained on life support for 2 days. Excessive force? The lawsuit filed by attorneys James Cook and David Lynn on behalf of Ireland's father states each of the officers involved in the incident either used force on Ireland without a penological purpose or failed to intervene to prevent others from doing so, though able. Lieutenant Tabitha Carter, who stayed in control to watch on camera, was not physically present but watched the use of excessive force by monitor and had the ability, by a word by radio, to stop the excessive force and failed to do so, the suit states. Violence by the others allegedly contributed significantly to the stresses of delirium tremens that caused Ireland's death. Crime scene photos of Ireland's body show bruising across his body and a gash on his forehead. Blood was spread across the floor of his cell. According to the autopsy, his sternum and ribs were fractured, consistent with vigorous resuscitative efforts. Although the officers recalled few words from Ireland throughout the incident, some inmates interviewed by major crimes remember differently. Lisa Sarles told investigators when officers told Ireland to get on his back, he said, "I can't, I just got tossed, and, I, expletive, can't, I, expletive, can't." Inmate Nicole Grookett told investigators even before the incident, when Ireland complained about an outburst by another inmate, an officer told him, "Go ahead, please bang on the door. Give me a reason." District Medical Examiner R.H. Imamai ruled Ireland's death natural, but questions remain. Rob Tygros believes Ireland was murdered. Sarles said one inmate called out, "You killed him," when the officers brought Ireland down the stairs. Ireland's father, Tom Ireland, said he's no expert on tasers or alcohol withdrawal, but something seems to have gone very wrong. "It didn't seem real natural to be tossed 9 times and stop breathing," he said. "You know, that didn't happen naturally." Mike Leoncio, a Tennessee-based consultant and law enforcement expert with 30 years in public safety service, said it's typically not recommended to deploy a taser against someone more than 3 times, or 15 seconds total, unless there are articulable facts that would justify the exposures. Those facts may include officers' safety, the safety of other staff and the safety of the person, who may be a threat to themselves. According to the officers, only 2 of the taser deployments were in probe mode. The other 7 were in drive-stun mode, which Leoncio said is intended more as pain compliance. "It's very localized, it's very painful," Leoncio said. "It's designed more as a deterrent or distractionary sort of tactic. It won't incapacitate them." Leoncio said although tasers can affect the heart, it typically happens right away. If Ireland was able to pull one of the probes out as the officers indicated, it was probably not very effective. If cardiac arrest happens sometime later, it's probably not related to the taser, he said. It's probably an underlying issue. That's not saying the taser couldn't have exacerbated an underlying problem, but typically it affects the heart immediately. Dr. Imamai's autopsy opinion is consistent with Leoncion's expertise. The report states Ireland was awake and vocal, although still disoriented, following the taser applications, so it seems unlikely that the taser applications were the cause of his sudden cardiac arrest. Ireland's cause of death is reported as complications of withdrawal due to acute and chronic ethanol abuse with liver disease and heart disease contributing. Failure to treat. During the use of force incident, Nurse Heavener called Dr. Gonzalez 4 times, according to the death investigation. She did not pick up the phone, and he couldn't leave a voicemail because her inbox was full. He did eventually get in touch with another doctor, who prescribed the detox protocol Valium, but Ireland was taken to the hospital before it was given to him. Prior to that, he appears to have been given no medication at the jail. Without treatment, individuals in delirium tremens have a 35% chance of death, according to Dr. Matthews. Both Nurse Bracey and Nurse Heavener were authorized to administer the potassium prescription, according to the suit, but they did not do so. The failure to administer Ireland's prescription is part of what the suit calls a general corporate custom and practice of delaying and minimizing medical treatment to prisoners under its care. It states Corizon typically delays for days the administration of medication already prescribed to inmates entering the jail in order to save on medication costs. The lawsuit also states Corizon short-staffs medical positions at the jail so staff are unable to pay the necessary degree of attention to the medical needs of the prisoners and hires doctors at a lower cost by making low demands on the employee doctors in terms of physical presence at the jail or accessibility on call, so doctors have a less demanding practice or maintain other practices. Corizon would not consent to an interview, but Director of External Affairs Martha Harbin provided Corizon's detox protocol, which states individuals who drink every day are put on a Valium protocol, while those who drink 4 or more times a week are put on observation and started on Valium if they show severe symptoms. Ireland's intake sheet indicated he drank 3 to 4 drinks every other day. Harbin also provided the following statement: Corizon health doctors and nurses have the same training and follow the same clinical practices as doctors and nurses who care for the general public. In addition, our clinicians follow the rigorous standards established by the National Commission on Correctional Health Care, which was created by the American Medical Association and sets the standards recognized by the medical profession and the courts as the benchmark for establishing and measuring a correctional health services program. In fact, the Charlotte County Jail is accredited by the NCCHC and received a 100% score on its last reaccreditation inspection. However, due to a number of considerations, patient privacy and employee safety foremost among them, we will not subject one of our nurses to a media interview. Outliving a child. For Tom Ireland, the lawsuit isn't about money. It's about holding someone accountable. I don't know what all was wrong, Tom said at his home in South Gulf Cove. I think something was wrong, no question. There ought to be a way to prevent it from happening again. For him and his wife, the incident began around 1 p.m. on Saturday when they got a call from Greg, saying he was in jail for a DUI. They needed $5,000 cash to get him out on bond, and banks had already closed, so they told him he'd have to stay there over the weekend. On Monday, Tom got the money and called to find out where to take it. Instead, he was told there'd been an incident. We knew very little except there had been an incident, he said. And that he had stopped breathing and they had resuscitated him, and he was in the hospital. Eventually, hospital staff said Ireland wasn't coming back and asked for permission to remove life support. Tom agreed. It hasn't been easy. Parents shouldn't outlive their children, he said. I hope I don't outlive any of the others. Tom said he doesn't know much about alcohol withdrawal, and he can't say whether it was necessary to tase his son, but it seems somewhere in the system, something failed. I don't know that there is one person to blame, he said. I don't know where the chain fell apart, but at that medical facility is the place to start. I don't believe they did their job, at least from what I see, that they took their responsibility to heart. He said Sheriff Prummell may have nothing to do with it, but he was the head of the organization and knows who he contracts with and who is responsible. The lawsuit states Prummell short-staffed the jail and turned a blind eye toward unqualified or marginally qualified officers who pick fights with inmates or use disturbances as training opportunities or opportunities to take out work-related frustrations. As to Corizon, the suit states Prummell was aware that Corizon had a long-standing and widespread pattern of abuses at his jail and across the country. Prummell and his staff would not comment on the case due to the pending litigation. I'd just like to understand what wasn't followed through on, what went wrong, because something was wrong, Tom said. For the kid, the 47-year-old kid, to go off the deep end in the middle of the night, what could have prevented that? Could what the hospital prescribed, if it had been followed through on, would it have evened things out and prevented the outburst? I don't know what the detox levels are and what they bring about, but this is what it looked like to me. It could have been mitigated somehow. Email, aeasker@sun-herald.com. Charlotte County Sheriff Bill Prummell provided a public tour of the jail after several incidents. Sun photo by Michelle Haskell. Crime scene photo of Ireland's cell after the incident. Photo provided by CCSO. G. Ireland.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County Cop Watch, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Charlotte County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave let's say actually yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where at least I can do it. 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is if I got some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. 47,000 of you so far right now. $1 a day. $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.